A couple videos ago, I talked about how I had discovered various loopholes to save a little money, cheat a little bit, even get a little bit extra space on a bus or sometimes on an airplane. But I realized that sometimes a little being a little clever on a regular basis can pay off in weird ways too. And I thought I'd make a video to talk about minor scams that myself and some of my other friends have done over the years. A few years ago, I was at a coin show, and toward the end of the afternoon at that coin show, I'd gone to another table, and I had picked out 5 coins that I wanted. I think they were silver coins, roughly half an ounce or so. They were $9 each, and I picked out 5 of them. And the dealer was very occupied with something else, and I gave him $35, and he took it without thinking much of it, and he thought 5 times 9 really was 35, and so I shorted him $10. And it wasn't a lot of money, but I'm constantly thinking of ways to squeeze something out of something, so it just had a good feeling to it, especially when you go to a coin show. I treat going to a coin show almost like it's going to Wall Street, because I treat coins like real wealth, so it's kind of like the equivalent of Wall Street for me. When I was working on my PhD, my advisor knew that I used to have a fear of flying. Halfway through the program, I got over the fear of flying, and I started traveling to conferences. And one time, she wanted me to go to a conference. This was in New York City. I was in Rochester, New York at the time, and she said, "Book this flight." And the conference was going to be on September 12th of 2011, and she wanted me to fly out on September 11th. I was like, "Are you kidding me? You want me to fly out September 11th? Why don't I leave September 10th? It's a good idea to mingle with the others besides my own talk anyhow." I really didn't have any intentions to mingle with anybody. I really didn't care about flying on 9/11. I just wanted to have that extra day of vacation. But the story made a whole lot of sense, and so she let me fly out on September 10th, and I got an extra day in New York, so that was nice. I used to like to go to banks and businesses and ask them if they have any weird coins, especially half dollars. Sometimes when you get a roll of half dollars or even a bunch of loose half dollars, sometimes an occasional silver coin would show up. Before 1964 and earlier, they used to be made of 90% silver. Between 65 and 70, they were made of 40% silver. And sometimes when you get a roll of half dollars, you sometimes even get a foreign coin. One time I found a German 5-mark coin in there. So a lot of interesting treasures will turn up just because nobody ever searches half dollars. And I used to go to the bank a lot to do this. And one time I had gone to, I don't even know why I decided this would be a good place to look for coins, but I went to a payday loan center, and I asked if they had any unusual coins, and they said, "Oh yeah, we just got a bunch of, we don't even know what to do with them, so thank God you came in." They were happy to sell them to me at face value. And there was a bunch of Eisenhower dollars, and then quite a few Morgan and Peace silver dollars. I think I bought about 70 or 80 of those Eisenhower dollars, and then another 30 to 40 of the Morgan and Peace silver dollars, which is really sad because apparently what happened was somebody took out a large payday loan of some sort, had trouble paying it off, and then went home to dig through Grandpa's old coins in order to pay off the payday loan. I kind of felt sad about taking them, but then I realized nobody wants them anyway, So, if you're from Buffalo, New York, and you're watching, if you can describe what those coins were, I would be happy to sell them back to you at the face value, because I kind of feel sorry about it. So leave a comment if you have photographs of it. That would be even better. Anyways, got a few nice coins out of it. Okay, I used to be fascinated with how much of ATMs would charge you for withdrawing money. I hate ATM fees. But I would be so fascinated about how much it was that I would put my ATM card into a machine and start the transaction to see that screen of how much it was, and then cancel the transaction, obviously. And every time I would travel to a different location, other countries, other states, I would be curious. And one year I had traveled to Tokyo, and I put my card into a machine, and I canceled the transaction, and the card got stuck! And I needed the card for the rest of the trip. and I looked through my pockets to see if there was anything that I could use to pry, because the card was really old. That's probably why I got stuck. And I found some the fingernail clippers or something like that, and I jammed the card slot, and I got the card back, but I destroyed the card slot. And it made the rest of my trip really, it gave me a lot of anxiety. Not long before I had traveled to Tokyo, we had the story about the kid who got in trouble in North Korea and was apparently executed. Otto Warmbier, he got in trouble for stealing a poster. So ever since then, every time I travel to another country, I'm always worried if I'm doing something that might be against their conventions, you know. And so having to jimmy a card out of a ATM machine really gave me some pause, because that story was still fresh on my mind. Another big problem I have with bank accounts is that I often, because I do so many things online nowadays, every time I get a paper check of some sort, I always forget to cash them. I just recently cashed a tax refund from over a year ago because I kept putting it off, and I had to get a new one, and finally I cashed it. I'm so glad I got the stimulus as a direct deposit. Especially right now, right? It's so hard to get help with any of that stuff, I had a problem with when I was buying my car. When you buy a car here in Washington State, they charge estimated taxes, and then a few weeks later they mail you a check for the difference. And I never got around to cashing the check. 6 months later, I get another check because they said, "Oh, our record show you haven't cashed it." And I had 3 or 4 of those checks before I finally cashed the last one. And it's just really frustrating. I get really nervous every time I see a check of any sort, which is really funny because I do a lot of gigs of tutoring especially, and sometimes people pay me with a check, and I often end up with tons of them before I go to cash them, and it always gives my clients a big shock that 5 or 6 checks. I got to stop doing that. It's really hurting me because they get a big shock, and then they sometimes they don't want to come back. So I got to correct that habit somehow. For some reason, I can't seem to deposit them online or something. I got to find an account where I can do this. When I was in 6th grade, I almost got in big trouble. What had happened was, we used to have payphones at the school, and I used to love to check those payphones for loose change. I wish I had known how to tell if the coins were made of silver, because I bet there were a lot of silver coins back then still in circulation. Silver was only worth $3 or $4 an ounce. There was a time, for a short period of time, where the silver in a 40% silver Kennedy half dollar was like less than 50 cents. I wish I had known a little bit more about coin collecting back then. I used to love to check the payphones, and everybody knew me as the payphone guy. And one day, one of my friends came up to me and dared me to call 911 on the phone. And I picked up the phone receiver, and I put 9-1, but I didn't hit the second 1. I tapped the 1 button, and I didn't push it. And he saw me, and we both laughed about it. And I told him, I kind of lied to him and said, okay, maybe another time. Not today, because I got a big exam today I have to take. I don't want to be interrupted. I think I can get an A+ in my exam today. I kind of made up some bullshit. I was never going to call 911, but I made up a bullshit. And so we put down the phone and we went back to class. And later that day, we heard sirens outside, and there were police cars, and an ambulance, and a fire truck. And my friend looked at me, and he was like, "Did you really do it?" And I said, "No, you saw me. I only pushed 9-1. And the teacher heard about all this, and she was very upset. And she thought for sure that I was very sure I didn't dial the third one, because I used to love the ringtones on the like, daw, daw, daw on the phone. I knew I didn't hear that third button. But the teacher insisted that I dialed it, and I think I got an after-school detention over it. And I still couldn't figure it out. I swore I didn't dial it, which made the teachers even more upset, because now I was lying on top of dialing the 911. And my friend wouldn't speak up for me either. And so I got in trouble both for the 911 call and for presumably lying. And later on, we discovered, actually a few years later, we discovered that a lot of payphones are programmed that way, that if you misdial 911, it will still connect you. It was a few years later, after Google had been invented, that we looked up what really happened, and apparently that's what had happened. Okay, getting back to some more serious scams. When I was living in New York, I needed to break a lease out of an apartment, and I called an old friend of mine, and she used to break leases all the time. I knew she moved a lot, so I asked her for some advice. And she came up with this idea of just making random complaints over and over and over again. And then finally negotiating with the landlord, saying, well, why don't I just move out here? Can you at least reduce the penalty for moving out of here? And when I first moved into that apartment, my landlord knew that I was very sensitive to chemicals, especially cigarette smoke. And I asked her if they had any smoking complaints, and I made a big fuss about it. And sure enough, there were no smoking issues. But I wanted to make sure that I would complain about them now, because I was planning on breaking that lease in 3 or 4 more weeks, right? And so I started complaining, and I would make sure the complaints were always in the middle of the night, so that nobody could check up on them. Last night I woke up coughing and wheezing because of smoke, and then a week later I went to the hallway when nobody was looking, and I burnt some Chinese incense. I knew nobody could identify that smell. And then I went up to the manager and said, why don't you come here? I think I smell cigarette smoke again. And so she confirmed it, and she said, okay, well, we'll find out who it is and talk to them. And then I made a few more noise complaints, cigarette smoke. I said somebody was smoking weed next to my apartment. And I actually don't react too badly to weed. Actually, I smoked the weed, and then I complained that somebody else smoked the weed. And so finally, the landlord allowed me to break the lease without penalty, and I moved to Seattle. So that was nice. I didn't feel too badly, though, because I didn't like New York all that much. And plus, I don't feel too badly for some of the properties there. But that's another story for another time. I deal on Craigslist a lot. And I came up with this idea. A lot of people on Craigslist are so afraid of the sunk cost fallacy. If they invest a lot of time, money, energy into a deal, they're going to complete the deal no matter what. And I came up with this idea of always making a very long small talk with whoever I'm dealing with. Let's say I want to buy a gold coin, and I see a seller who's listing a gold coin, and I call them, and I talk, and I talk, and I talk, and I make sure they come out to look for me, and then I'm nowhere to be found. Oh my God, I got sick, Oh, I think I'm recovering from COVID. Why don't we meet up in 2 weeks? And if that coin's still around in 2 weeks, you can bet he still wants to sell it to me because he has a sunk cost in his head. And one time I had done this, and the seller got very upset after we had met up for, I think it was the 3rd time we had attempted to meet up, when we finally did, and then I haggled the price some more. And he got in his truck, and he raced around the parking lot, and he looked like he was almost going to hit me, and he raced away. And I just had a big laugh. I love playing that game. I didn't feel it was a waste of time, and sometimes I get a good deal out of it, so it was nice. Anyways, I'm always looking for some way to angle shoot a little bit and to get something for nothing. Not because I need something for nothing, but it feels like a fun game to me. Thanks for watching.